Showtime.
Live. Hello, everyone. Here we are. Sorry, 8 minutes late. Hello.
It's all her fault.
It was. I was making myself a coffee so that I could
I have to say, and be totally upfront and honest, if you had been ready at 8 o'clock on the dot, I would have been late.
There you go then. That's all right then.
I'm an honest person. You
are an honest person. You are an honest
person. So we'll point the finger.
That's that way. Yeah, so it was my fault. It usually is my fault. I was having my dinner and then suddenly realised, oh God, I've got to quickly go and make myself a cup of coffee. Hello, Grace. You're nearly always the first one to say hello. Nearly always.
It's normally 1, 2, or 3 with Grace, isn't it? 1, 2, or 3. She's there, ready and waiting.
That's right. You should definitely have some form of prize for that, I think. Sarah's here. Hi, Sarah. Sarah will be on her way back home, I believe, soon. She's been on the mainland, Gary. She's heading back to her island. Isn't it lovely? Aren't we making friends on this group? We're meeting people and making friends. Isn't it great?
And it's going to be really weird when we actually meet them in person one day, hopefully.
I know. There's my dog. Hi, Libby. Good to see you.
Hi, Libby.
Oh, she can get in. That's all right. Then she slithered past. I found you. I don't know who that is. Who's that, Gary?
Oh, is this somebody that hasn't been able to find us live?
Goodness me. We're everywhere. How can you not possibly find us live? Grace says 8 o'clock is my chill out time. And you choose us to chill out with? What's wrong with you, child?
Well, it's Sunday evening. And I have to say, for all of those people that are in the UK, happy Mother's Day.
Oh, yes.
It's Mother's Day, and I have no idea whether it's the same anywhere else. If it is, well, if you're a mother, well, let's face it, you're all mothers to horses or fathers to horses. Yes. So happy Mother's Day wherever you are.
Hey, happy Mother's Day. Melissa says daylight saving time has messed me all up. I showed up an hour early. Oh, I am sorry. Has it already gone? It's not gone over to daylight saving time already. Oh, no.
No, it's not for us until another couple of weeks.
It's end of March. Thank God for that, because that really would have screwed me up. Yeah, same here, says Anne. Sorry, folks. Who knows? Why can't they just keep the time just the same? Just madness. Well, it's not madness. I know why they do it, but it just completely buggers us all up, doesn't it?
The lady says, "Hi, I found you." Was Lou Moss.
Oh, Lou Moss. Hello, Lou. She's new to the group. Hi, Lou. We're the mad pair that started this group, and plus all of our students. We've got at least 1, 2, 3 or 4 already joined us on the live tonight. 7 a.m. Here she is. Who's that?
That's Carol Piper.
Hi, hello, Carol Piper.
If you want your avatar to show up, if you go to the top of the post, there's a little blue link and it gives you permissions, and then your name will pop up instead of Facebook user.
That's right. That's what it'll say. Becky's here, another one of our students. Hi, Becky. Look at her there. Look in a little picture. She's there with Buddy. There's a horse called Buddy, and that was at our
training camp. Yeah,
that was at our training camp last year, which was where we're going back to at the end of April. Hi, Trisha Ann.
Hi, Trisha.
I hope. Oh, Trisha's going through the 10-day. I wonder what she.
And I saw very quickly that she sent me a message. I'll reply to you after the show.
Did you?
I haven't forgotten you, love.
Did it? Was it a message of, my God, Gary, you're far better than Lindsay. She doesn't know what she's talking about. Hi.
I couldn't possibly say.
Becky says, I love that pic. It shows how happy. Everybody loves that pic. It's such a lovely pic. And he's nuzzling you there. He's like, oh, it's lovely. I love you. Howdy from New Zealand. Howdy. Good to see you all. Goodness knows what we're going to talk about tonight. We can either go, because we haven't actually gone down the page recently. I remember we haven't done that. So we could do that. Or we could start off with
I've got a couple of pedal bones in the box downstairs. I was going to bring them up and I completely forgot.
Oh, We'll do it tomorrow night. It's
Perhaps
not
I'll do
like
that tomorrow
it's
night.
not like we're not going to be here again tomorrow night, Gary.
No. Tuesday night might be a bit of a struggle, but I'm going to make it. Even if I'm in a car.
Why?
I'm going to make it. Because I'm
It's our
coming
challenge.
home.
It's our challenge. If you don't make it, I'll be here. It just means I'll have done one extra day than you. Becky's there
That's
with a
not
glass
allowed.
of wine.
It
Oh,
can't
my
happen
cat's
now.
wandering around. There he goes. One of them.
Hey, Flops.
I've got a coffee. Well, that's what I've told you it is.
I haven't got a drink or anything.
Hello, big lovely heart. Don't know who that
That's Paula
is.
Smith.
And another hello. There's 2 hellos there. If you go to the
Monica, and it's a foreign name that I'm not going to even embarrass myself at even letting go.
If you go to the link in the post, blue link, press it, give your permission, and refresh, your avatar should show up like all the others, and then we know who you are. Otherwise, we have to rely on Gary, and I have to keep going. Who's that? Who's that? Right. So very good. Last night we talked about hoof cracks, and we talked about sinking, vet schools, all sorts of things we talked about last night. I don't know what we're going to talk about tonight. Surely, hello, surely we are going to end up having nothing to talk about at some point. We'll have exhausted everything. We'll have to stop the lives. We won't be able to go live again. There'll be nothing to talk about. We'll have done it all.
Can I just highlight something?
Yes.
Can I highlight something that may not be bleedingly obvious to people when we are only on day 6?
Day 6.
There is never an occasion that Lindsay doesn't have something to say.
Oh, and you as well.
And me as well.
Never.
I perhaps need a little bit more prompting, but then once I get going.
Oh, who's this? Degeneration of the coffin bone. I bet that's Jenny.
It is. How did you know?
Good evening, Celia.
Oh, I can see. I gotta say a special shout out, because I can just see she's watching. She's being quiet in the background. Hi, Alison. Good to see you yesterday.
Mary says I liked your earlier post explaining the 15-day challenge. I might tonight, actually, if we get the opportunity, I might whiz down the page of the 15-day challenge, and we might just have a little chat about it so that you can ask questions, and we'll tell you what it's, what it's about, and we can actually go through, not the actual challenge itself, can't do that, but we can actually go through what each day is about on the challenge. We might do that later, if I remember. We might do that later. Degeneration of the coffin bone. So what's the other word that we use for degeneration of the coffin bone? Can you remember? What's the word that we use? Now we have to wait for them to the lag period. And then when they've got that, they have to start typing it. It's a very big, long one. I'll give you a clue.
Begins with O.
It begins with O, and it's Latin for bone, osteo, isn't it? So that you'll find that at the beginning. It's osteo something. What do we call degeneration of the coffin bone? Shall I share with you, my friends, my one of my nerdy pages? One of my nerdy pages.
Oh, Rachel spout it right. Well, she would, wouldn't she? Because she's my wife. Here, you don't normally sit and watch me on the telly.
No, what's she doing here? Right, let me see.
Here?
Let me share.
It's probably the only chance she gets to see me in a fortnight.
Look at you all good. Osteonecrosis. Everybody needs to learn how to spell osteonecrosis. I don't care if you don't know how to spell it. Everybody will get the drift. I'm saying it but can't spell it yet. Trisha says osteonecrosis. Yeah. Now this is a major problem. And when the equine world finally catch up with the cause of osteonecrosis, because right now they still believe and have done nothing about it. Nothing's been done. No research, no real looking into it. Nobody's got any papers on it. How crazy is that when we have hundreds upon thousands of horses that have died because of degeneration of the coffin bone, because the way that they have been, what has happened to P3, because P3 cannot, you can't, it's irrecoverable. When it happens, when P3 starts to remodel, we can stop it. But once it gets to there's like a tipping point. Once it goes beyond a certain way, that's kind of it in terms of the horse ever really finding comfort ever again. And Gary and I'll show you some pictures in a minute. We'll show some, we'll get some pictures up in a minute, but let's just lay the scene for a minute. So Gary and I, as you know, we go and do lots and lots of workshops, and we've been doing them for quite a few years, and we go through a lot of cadaver hooves. And quite some time ago now, but you know, we chop them up at the end of every workshop. We chop them up, and we don't chop up loads, we chop up some, right? We choose a few to chop up. And we started seeing this dreadful pattern of horses that had half a bone left. I might be able to bring one up in a moment very quickly if I put it here. Anyway, so we started seeing this, and of course I know what it is, but we were starting to see more and more of it, and I was quietly starting to get a little bit perturbed by this. So we began to look into it a little bit more. And it's a very horrendously sad situation that we have in the equine world, because osteonecrosis, that is degeneration of the coffin bone, P3, whatever you want to call it, P3 pedal bone, distal phalanx, coffin bone, is a man-made problem. And it's happened because of a misunderstanding about laminitis and therefore trimming. And so yeah, I've got a picture here that I'm going to show you of a cadaver hoof, and let's see if you can work out what you're looking at. Right, hold on. Present, share screen, blah, 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 blah. Here we go. Okay. Can you see that?
Yeah.
So that was on our Stafford workshop in April last year. This particular, in fact, this one, Becky's watching. Becky and Lisa cut this foot up in half. Took them ages. It took them ages to cut it in half. But we deliberately chose this because I don't know if you can look. I can show you more. This is what it looked like underneath. Now we chose to cut it here and not down the middle for a very good reason, because here was the beginning of an abscess. If I show you this here, can you see this? This is an abscess.
Yeah.
and a very long foot. Now you might, well, what looked like a bizarrely long, I mean, it's a bit of an odd picture. It looked like a long foot, right? Now, because it looks long, this foot will have been trimmed to try and keep it short. Now, I didn't have the toe chopped off particularly, but this is after one of our people on the workshop had a go at trimming it, and then we cut it in half. So this is where we had this big amount of separation in the white line. The infection got in, it tracked its way up, and the abscess burst here. Now, my guess is that this horse had suffered from recurring abscesses for a very long time. wasn't a small horse. It was quite a big horse. You can see that it was having laminitic changes. These rasp marks are not us. This is a previous person who would have been rasping the hoof wall. And yeah, it was a bit of a mess. Let me see if I should really be trying to look at the, that's probably a bit better. I don't know. So let's go back to this picture. Oh, now I need to make it bigger again now. There you go. Can you see that okay?
Yep.
You're gonna have to look at the side of my head, because I've got in order to actually, I might be able to, if I put StreamYard on that screen, and then I can look at this one on this screen. Okay, so what are we looking at here? What do you think you're looking at here? Do you think you can tell me what you can see? Do you think you can tell me what you can see? Obviously, we're seeing osteonecrosis. But how can you tell? So this foot is incredibly poorly, and unfortunately, it was in fact the right thing to do for this animal to be put to sleep, because it had absolutely no bone left whatsoever. And if I take that picture and I stick it into, let's just go find a space on my whiteboard, and I'll show you on there. I'm going to stop sharing just for a minute. And now I'm going to share something else. Oh, where's it gone? Canva. Here it is. Okay. Can you see it? Everybody see that?
Yeah.
All right. So now what we have here is we have a situation where, let me just find, you're going to have to see me work on my Canva now. This would be hilarious. So what you have here is, here's P3. Let's make this a little bit thicker so you can see it. Everybody see that?
Mm-hmm.
Actually, it's going to be more like that. There we go. Oh, hello. Okay, so that's basically a rough guesstimate of where P3 would have been. Can everybody see that? And can you see that in actual fact what's happened is that is the end of P3 now. And you have a little area here where that point there, let's put a little arrowhead on the end of it. This one here, this spot here, what does anybody know what that is? Does anybody know what that little, well, quite large red hole is on the picture? Anybody know? Everybody's been very, very quiet. It always makes me very worried when everybody goes quiet. It's either because they're just fascinated or everybody's switched off. What is the red thing I'm pointing to with the arrow? I've gone quiet, Gary. Do you remember this? Do you remember this?
Shall I put them out of their misery, or do you think they're just thinking?
No, I think they're thinking. I think they're Googling. I think somebody's Googling.
Somebody's bound to be Googling.
Somebody's bound to be Googling. Come on, guys.
I have no idea what's going to come up when they Google red blob pedal bone. Can you imagine?
Okay, they're coming in. Celia says, is it where a vein goes through? Yes. Very good. Where is the tip of P3? At the end of the blue triangle.
That's where it would have been.
That's where it would have been. The tip of P3 has gone.
The tip of P3 is gone.
No
The
idea.
edge of the pedal bone now in this picture is actually where that yellow line is. But it's not the tip because the tip is gone. But that's the edge of the pedal bone. That is, yes.
Is that better?
Yeah. So when you have osteonecrosis, the tip has gone.
But look where the tip is right now. If the tip of the bone was there, look where it wouldn't be. Look where the sole is. Can you see? Horrific. I know it's horrific.
It is.
And this is a
horse.
Horrific. This was a horse attached to this.
Yeah.
Our beloved, wonderful, gorgeous horses. This is what is attached. Oh, no, you don't want to do that. Oh, sorry. Yes. Horrific. Could that horse have sole cancer? No. Arrow through the sole. Yes. Shall I put you out of your misery and start chatting about it and tell you what you need to know?
Yes, do it, because there's a couple of questions coming. Somebody says, where is the pedal bone? Where's the tip gone?
Where's the tip? Where's the tip gone?
Yeah.
It has disintegrated. Yeah. All right. Okay. So I wonder if I should make, yes, please. All right, then. Oh, look at us. Look at us down there. Will that get in the way? See if we can do it like that. Right. Now, I can't really see what I'm looking at, because I have to go onto my Canva. So Gary, just shout out to me if you can't see anything. All right. So here we go then. This is P3, this bone here. And this bone here is P2. As you can see, P2, there's not a lot wrong with
too low. All we see now is P2.
Yes, I only want to show you P2. I only want to show you P2. Cool. P2. So this is P2. And as you can see, there's not an awful lot wrong with P2 or even at the bottom of P1. The cartilage is still intact. The cartilage is still intact here. This is the navicular bone. This here is this gap that you can just see here is a navicular bursa. And this white line here, that is the deep digital flexor tendon. And that, as you can see here, attaches to the bottom of the pedal bone right there in what we call the enthesis organ. And then this pathetic bit of tissue, and I say pathetic because it's not meant to look like that, because it's far too, and this was a big horse. This is what we call utter caudal hoof failure. This horse has had complete caudal hoof failure. This is the digital cushion. And here, of course, is the frog. This poor horse would have been in agony. I can only say agony. And the abscess was the final straw. So the abscess hole was all down to the fact that this horse now was totally unable to make a proper connection with its hoof wall. The only connection he had left to his hoof wall was just here. This is the only lamina he had left, because all the rest of the bone had completely disappeared. And we'll talk about that again in a moment. So all of this here, this massive wedge, is a confused, let's go back to here. Oh, no, I can't now, because we're not looking at that now. I'm still on this. This is a confused mass of horn, mixed up horn. At the end of P3 are what we call terminal papillae that sit at the end of the dermal laminae down here. And their job is to, with the epidermal laminae, to make the white line. Well, there's nothing it's all a very, very confused mess. There's no way that any white line is going to be made properly there, because it's lost half of its anatomy. This line you see here was part of the abscess tract. I think we've got I'll show you the other one in a moment. This was part of the abscess track. And then the abscess came and it went all the way up here and burst out here. Okay. And I
Very
think
hard to see your cursor.
I can't change it. Can you see it now? I go round and round?
No, not really.
Oh.
So you might have to draw on it and then take the drawing off.
Okay. So let me draw. Oh, oops. Hang on. There we go. So this here is the line of the abscess, and you can't see it fully because it's it's where it popped is on the other side. You can sort of see it on the other side. So that's the line of where the abscess went, and all of this is a complete muddle. It's just a complete muddle. It doesn't know what it's doing down here. It's just a total muddle, right? And this here is what we call the terminal arch. The terminal arch. And that is where all the blood vessels, the major blood vessels that come down into the horse's hoof, the digital artery and the digital vein, they come through here. What they call the actual hole itself is called the solar canal, and they come in there and they merge together like that. Boop. And they merge together, and from there, blood vessels then come out of there, come out of the wall of P3 and go down towards the circumflex artery, which is at the distal edge, the bottom edge of P3, and then go underneath P3 and feed all of the solar dermis that's underneath here. But unfortunately, that's not happening anymore. So the reason that this has occurred is because let's just take these off. Oh, come back. Oh, this pedal bone had been sat on its tip for a very long time. You can see, can't you, that the angle that P3 is in. And back along, this horse would have been with his heels high potentially, but it doesn't always have to be that way. But he definitely had caudal hoof failure, so something had happened back along, probably shoes at one point of his life. And the toe was continually being removed. And can you see the little pencil mark?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see that. So now it doesn't look, it kind of almost looks like just a poorly foot from underneath until you cut into it and you realize he's lost half of his foot. So had he been, the hoof wall should have come in and done this for this horse. Basically, this is how this horse's foot would have been. But you can see that all of this is gone. It's completely gone through years and years of removal, 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 and having no balance point, so that all the pressure was coming up through the sole. It had been over thinned. You can see how thin this sole is. It's tiny thin. And all the pressure was coming up through the sole onto this P3. P3 was angled so that that circumflex artery that ran around the distal edge of P3 was being squeezed. That then disappeared, and gradually, the pedal bone just, oh, where's my drawing gone? Pedal bone gradually just, let's just delete that, started to die. So it shrank because it lost bone. All that bone just got lost until eventually what you had left was this. Oop. That's it. That's the last little bit of bone that he had left in his foot. That is osteonecrosis. And that is man-made, because that didn't need to happen. Now, you'll be told, and there is just no science on it, because nobody's really ever looked into it. They just sort of like all went, oh, let's just not talk about that one. Don't really understand it. And because of that, this has been allowed to happen to, I don't know how many millions of horses, because there's continual toe chopping. And let me show you some more examples. So here is, can you see this, Gary?
Yeah.
So this is a foot that has lost a great portion of P3. You can see here is a more normal looking pedal bone. Do you see that?
Yeah.
This is not a normal. And the thing to always look for is the digital arch, right? Those lines are just lines I've been fiddling with. Digital arch, the terminal arch. You just see it here, this dark spot. And you can see that the terminal arch is just over halfway down. So when you see that there's no bone really below it, you know that it's lost a great significant portion of that. So this bone here is about to be in peril if it's not been sorted. If the person who is letting these heels go up doesn't sort it out. And gradually, the first thing that starts to happen is the tip of P3 begins to remodel at stage 1. And that had happened here. And then stage 2 is when it just decides, well, it just starts to disintegrate, because all the pressure is being put underneath here, because these heels are high and that horse is walking around on the tip. So this is this example here. Let me show you. So this is a pony one of our students is going to. There's no name on it, is there? No. And this was the first set of x-rays a few years ago. Now you can just start to see there's remodeling. It's already lost some of the tip of P3. And if you're nerdy like me and you start seeing hundreds and hundreds of these x-rays, which I've done, there's a pattern every single time. There's a pattern. So you can see there's the terminal arch. It's lost quite a bit of P3, and it's shaping itself like this. Now, this is because the bone is trying to make a surface for it to walk on, because you can see the ski tip goes out. It's level, effectively parallel with the sole, because it's trying to create this stability. And the palmar process is way up here. Look at the height of the heels, right? Look at the height of the heels. So this is this pony. Look at the other one. Tiny little pedal bone, already being remodeled. Sorry, it's a bit blurry. So that was then. And the vet that did that x-ray should have gone, my word, we're in dire straits here. We need to get these heels down and get this pony into the right position so that his P3 is in the right position. But that didn't happen. So then this pony ended up having another x-ray a little while later, because a barefoot trimmer had been trimming. And Gary and I have a bit of a thing now. I know we're barefoot specialists, but barefoot trimming, my friends, has been one of the leading reasons why this has accelerated in the equine world, because barefoot trimmers are taking toes off. And of course, there's as much as we hate shoes, and we do, and osteonecrosis, as you've just seen here, happens in shoes. But when you can accelerate this process through having P3, I mean, it's still going to happen, but having P3 down here and just this complete toe removal. Okay, heels high. Now you can see this pressure coming through here. You can see this ski tip is now going. It's now going up, because the angles just keep changing, and it's lost quite a bit more of its foot. Can you see? It's getting to be a disaster. Now, when the vet x-rayed this, instead of going, and there's laminitis here as well. But instead of going, oh my word, you know, crikey, look at these heels, they have been told in these old-fashioned textbooks that this is caused because P3 is rotating. Well, you can see this is all down to the heel height. Every single one here that I've shown you so far, and this continual removal here and dumping the horse to walk around on the sole. And didn't notice that. And do you know what the vet actually said? I think I might have it. Let me just, I don't want you to see who it is, but read this. Hi, Lucy. I've attached Brian's feet x-rays to this email, which I've labelled left and right. The message to be passed on to your farrier is, get this. Now, this is a dire situation. You have to understand this is dire. And this vet has no sense of direness in this message. Brian's feet need a decent amount of toe removed and the medial lateral imbalance reducing. What? You want more toe to be removed so that he is even more in dire straits here? Shocking. As he has minimal solar depth, the least amount of sole as possible to be removed. Well, yeah, but you've just removed the toe, so you've dumped him to walk more on this. But some can come off the heel if they see fit. So no, urgent, big warning sign, needs to get him off that heel now, get P3 into a bed. None of that. And in fact, this here, this situation here is this is that situation which I told you about earlier, which is a possibility that you're never going to get this horse comfortable ever again. This is significant. This is a significant amount of loss and remodeling. Due to the small size and margins available to be offered due to large rotation and sinking, it hasn't actually got large rotation, and the sinking is just some. Do you remember I said to you, what, as the fetlock sunk down through, the fetlock's still in the same place. What's happened is this hoof capsule has been manipulated and he's lost P3, so the hoof capsule looks like the hoof capsule has gone up effectively because it's shortened. Right? It's not that this has come down. This is a hoof capsule problem, not a bone problem. Due to the small size and margins able to be offered due to large rotation and sinking, neither of those things, this will need to be done little and often over a number of trims. Where's the urgency? Where's the crikey? I have advised the owner to get a pair of supportive boots for Brian, as I assume his feet will be too small for any shoes to be placed. And those were his little feet that were basically just similar to that. And so after this x-ray, the farrier came along and took more toe off. And this is what he did. This is what he did. He took more toe off. And that foot needs to be, because he's going out. So that's him trying desperately to heel, which he can't. And then you've got this big stubby bit, and that's going out there. And he effectively would have been out here, round about here probably, actually, with his lamella wedge when he finally grew it out, and more sort of like this, really. Oops. There we go. Oop. Okay. Because those heels are stupidly high. So this horse's foot is in a complete mess. And I know I've got this very long. That's because he will have a lamella wedge. But what would have happened if he'd have finally grown his foot out? He would have been all the way down here with a decent amount of foot in the end, okay? Which he hasn't got. Which he hasn't got because they've been removing it. This poor pony. So there you go. That is one example. Let's go and have a look over here. There's another one. That's Brian. That was May 2023, and we only got to see him a month or so ago. You can imagine what he's like now. Let's go look at some other ones. This is my nerdy wall. I have so many of these. This is a great example. This here, let me show you this. This is, oh, let's take this down here to a space where we've got space. Right, can you see this, Gary?
Yeah.
Now look, we don't get many images like this that often, but this was an absolute gift. So this lady contacted me because her horse had been barefoot and she wanted to take him, wanted her to stay barefoot, but she had laminitis. So the vet came along and they said, we're going to have to shoe. And because you're not going to get over the laminitis. Now, let's just look at this foot to start with. So this was the first shoeing, and this was the x-ray after the shoeing. So the heels had been allowed to be too high, hadn't taken the heels down. The laminitis was there, but it wasn't that bad at this stage. And then as we move along, look at where the heels are going. So you have a good look at the heels. Can you see them going up? Can you see P3 changing its angle, the palmar processes? And P3 looking more and more rotated. And then we get to this one. Look at the difference between, flick your eyes back and forth between this one and this one. And even this one is high. Just flick your eyes back and forth. And as he's doing that, he's shortening this toe wall all the time, because they're trying to keep this hoof pastern axis here. So this is getting overly thinned. You see here the thickness of the sole, and it starts to be thinned and thinned as the heels go up. They look at this and they x-rayed it and they went, oh, my word. Well, we've not been able to stop it. We've got terrible rotation now. Your horse isn't going to make it. And the farrier did that. And the ignorance of the vet, he never spotted it. And they don't. They think it's rotation. And that, as I'm sure you can all see, is a perfect example, a gift for us. And here's the other foot, getting higher, getting higher. Do you see? He let this one go up even higher. So if you look at the difference between the two, and we see that all the time, we see a disparity in the left and the left and the right front foot. We see this all the time. Take your eyes and flick from one to the other. See the difference in the hoof capsule. Look at this length of toe here. When this mare, at least at this stage, still had a decent amount of foot, right? Look at the length of the hoof capsule here. Now look at it here. Can you see how short it is? The farrier did that, which is why this foot is now penetrating, why P3 is penetrating, because he completely turned this into this little box that he took all the toe off and let the heels go up, and P3 eventually ended up penetrating the sole.
Shocking, isn't it?
Oh God, there's loads of comments.
Just to add to that, which I think is something that, because when we're looking at X-rays, it does take a bit of an art form, doesn't it? And getting used to seeing what is normal and what isn't. When you've got a horse that is in a laminitic episode, they go into this laminitis stance, don't they? They rock back. Why do you think that they're rocking back? To ask that question out there. Why do you think that they're rocking back? Now, some people may have heard us say this before, because we say it quite a lot. Why do you think that the horses are rocking back, particularly off their front feet? Because it generally happens more in the front feet.
Well, and why is that, Gary? Because they
chop the toes off. They manipulate the front feet and generally don't manipulate the back feet. So what's that all that about?
there's
so
no difference.
to get the pressure off the tip of the pedal bone. So can you understand that if you've got the incorrect hoof care where they're being wedged up, and because of that inaccurate hoof care, the horse has got to lean back even further to get that pressure off the tip of the pedal bone.
Because when he leans back, he's got a great
Because
big
when he's
chunk
leaning back,
in the
he's
way.
actually putting the pedal bone into a more natural position. Now, I'm not saying that laminitic horses that have been trimmed correctly aren't sore. They are, because there's inflammation in the foot, but they don't lean back as much as when the heels are left really unnaturally high and tipping forward. Did that make sense? So if you've got a laminitic foot, but the pedal bone is in the correct position, there's less leaning back. Yes, they're sore. Yes, they've got laminitis, but if the pedal bone's in the right place, there's less of this rocking back because the pedal bone was in such an unnatural position. And is it any wonder that when you see, like that Lindsay showed those x-rays, that when the vets come along and say chop the toe off, then as the toe comes back, the whole foot becomes less mass. What the foot needs is more mass. It needs
Totally.
more support.
Needs
It needs more support, massive support.
The mass has been removed.
And if
You
as
saw
long as you
last
don't
night.
remove that mass, the pedal bone stays in the right place, and then the healing can continue really quickly. If you've got an acute laminitic horse that is being trimmed correctly, and the pedal bone is in the correct place, and the cause is the underlying cause is sorted, so that's the diet and the management, that horse can be sound in 6 to 8 weeks. That's the reality.
Did you say Alison's here? As in?
Yes, she's put a couple of, doesn't show her name. She says, it's to take the pressure off the pedal bone. She did ask, did Brian survive?
He's still alive.
Oh, is he?
At the moment.
And also, she asked, so the bone just breaks down within the hoof.
Yeah,
Yeah, and the reason that
placed a organ.
yes, yeah.
Yes, Alison, are we able? Would you mind if we showed Rosie?
Oh, she won't mind at all.
Let me just go through some of these. Let's go through some of these. How much is okay to remove or roll? You go to the hard side. You go to the just like any other. Just imagine. You've got to just imagine the wedge isn't there, right? You've got no separation, and you just ignore that. It's like, oh yes, it got wedged. So, and you go. I'm going to show you some examples of that in a minute from Gary's trim with Rosie, if Alison's okay with it. And you go, you allow normally you allow the inner hoof wall to be there, and the outer hoof wall is basically gone. Just think, guys, just how much quality you're getting from us. Free. These aren't even webinars you have to pay for. Oh, I don't mind. I'm such a nerd. We're nerds. We like to share. So the bone just breaks down within the hoof. Yes. It
gets reabsorbed because bone needs blood to survive. But because of that extra pressure on that circumflex artery, which feeds that bone, once that blood supply has lost, the bone is not being fed anymore, and it disintegrates and just gets reabsorbed within the body.
Jenny says, sadly, at our rehab centre sanctuary, we are now experiencing forward degeneration. I was led to believe it was diet by previous trimmers, but now totally understand it was the trim and could have started way before their life, before coming to us to be rehabbed. Yeah. When you have an animal that you think that you are doing as much as you can for the diet and the management, they're just not getting better, and you're looking at the feet and you can see that the toes are being chopped off, you can pretty much, you've got you can make a good guess that something's going not very well with P3. And when we are asked to go to clients now, and we've had a few come through the Phoenix group, bless them, when we're asked to go and see clients, we say, and they have been in this situation like Brian for a while, we always ask them to have x-rays. We can't go forward without x-rays because we need to know how bad P3 is. Crisis in equine medicine. It's a crisis.
It is.
It's massive crisis. And did you say it was the number 2 killer of horses? It astounds me that this is not being studied about, as we've mentioned before, no money. Well, this is the funny thing, actually, Anne. That the powers that be that don't understand laminitis have labelled it the number 2 killer. We don't. We really label it the number 1 killer, because they don't equate things like and colic, for instance, can happen when horses are in terrible pain with laminitis, because laminitis and colic are both related because they're both to do with the gut. There are so many things that are related to laminitic changes that are not seen as laminitis, and therefore horses are put down because the foot sore, because they're lame, because they're abscessing all the time. They've got massive hoof cracks, like that one that we showed you yesterday. That was put down. That wouldn't have been on the tick for laminitis. So that horse was put down because it had this awful hoof crack. It wouldn't have gone. Vet wouldn't have gone, oh, we put that one down because it had laminitis. That wouldn't have been ticked for laminitis. That would have been ticked as nasty hoof crack, nothing we can do about it, gone. But the hoof crack was there because it had laminitis, because it had a stretched white line, and the crack was caused by the stretched white line. So the root cause is laminitis. So it actually is the number 1 killer. But either way, number 1 or 2, the equine world should have woken up, shouldn't it? But they haven't. Sadly, this is how our previous trimmers trimmed our rehab laminatics. Oh, to be able to turn back the clock now, learning from you guys. Yeah, but you are where you are now.
Yeah, you can't go back.
And it's fantastic you are where you are.
And that's reflecting on the past is healthy. Dwelling on the past is not.
No. Learning
learning from our mistakes is progress, but dwelling on them is waste of energy.
Yes,
we've got to find a positive way forward.
Brilliant. Yeah, because guilt will eat away at you.
Yes.
And your positive way forward. I can't tell you how many times Gary and I will have gone to a client in a situation where I'll look at that comment in a minute. In a situation where they'll say they'll have a laminitic pony horse, we'll sort them out, and then they have frequent tears because they say, I lost my other horse or my other pony to laminitis because I didn't know what I knew and now know, and now I know I'll never let that happen again. And all we have to say to those people is, you'll never let it happen again, because you do know now, because you can stop it. And it is all down to you guys. You can stop it. My pony had laminitis in all 4. They do have laminitis in all 4. It's not just the front foot problem. It's in all 4 feet. It's a whole body problem. Our farrier chopped the toes on the front but left the lamina stretch on the hind. Yeah, it's so common. Like, what's that about, right? Because think about it. They're doing it, so they say, because they're trying to, 1, improve breakover, hello, and 2, on a poorly horse. And do they understand what breakover is? I think not. And 2, because they're fearful that the laminar wedge is going to stretch the lamina more. But it doesn't. And you've proved that by the fact you've left it on the hind legs, on the hind feet.
There is no consistency at all in their theories. Absolutely none. If we had them all on a show with us, we could actually, well, it would be, well, I'm sorry, but it would be laughable. It would be laughable.
It drives us.
You people on the Phoenix group, our Phoenix warriors, would be able to rip them a new one.
Yeah, well, I tell you, that's what I never really realized, that Hoofing Marvelous would finally become, you know, we're almost like a campaign now. It's like we're campaigning for change, and that's what it feels like. I didn't realize that's where we were going, but in the last few years, that's where we've got to. We are campaigning for change. Why do experts everywhere say to take the toe off and put shoes on? Why stand the way to trim hooves correctly? Obviously, still. Because
that's down to education.
Because the vets are being taught out of old textbooks and old theories, old-fashioned information that's still coming out of places like the Laminitis research unit in Queensland, in Australia, by Chris Pollitt and Von Epps and all of those. Still that stuff, they're still stuck hard on it. And yet these people are not barefoot specialists. These people are not, let's just even take barefoot out of the thing, they're just not foot specialists when it comes to understanding a trim, as Von Epps has proven, because he put that video on YouTube telling the world that that foot was sinking down through, and it wasn't, because I showed you it wasn't. It was a hoof capsule manipulation, and that's what happened. But these people are at the very top of the laminitis research game. These are the ones that have been the ones that people have listened to. This is where the textbooks have come from. And that an old information. That's why I call it bogus science. There's no rehabs. They've not been doing rehabs. They've just been looking at dead legs. Or they've taken living animals and put them to, tested them like lab rats and put them to sleep. And come up with assumptions. Things are happening for sure. The histology is happening. The cells are, the laminitis is happening. But they're putting 2 and 2 together and making 102. Because they've not worked it out yet. So you have the vets not having that full story. They don't have the information. And then you have the farriers who don't have that information, but they're the ones that are doing the feet. Because the vet doesn't know that the farrier is manipulating the foot in the way that he's doing it, and the farrier isn't really aware of it himself. He's just been taught to keep to the hoof pastern axis, which with a distorted hoof is disastrous. It's a death sentence. Because the vet doesn't know that, all the vet does is look at a foot and go, well, that looks all right. They don't know. So you have this void down the middle of farriers being told what to do by vets who haven't got any idea that the farrier is then manipulating the hoof capsule to make it look normal from the outside. It's a muddle and a big void. And so consequently, we have a disaster on our hands. It's huge. The equine world has been putting horses down for years, many, many years, hundreds and thousands, millions of horses lost to incompetence, to ignorance, to human error. And it is sickening, shocking, and in the first 2 weeks of the Phoenix group starting, we were inundated by people sending us x-rays with horses, and it's not stopped. X-rays with horses who have got osteonecrosis. You can't turn back. And these poor owners stuck there going, they didn't do it. Okay, the laminitis was the down to the owner in the first place, but they were trying to do something about that. And on top of all of that, right, the vets aren't telling the owners what to do in order to change the diet and the management. Let's box rest them or stick heart bar shoes on. They don't take x-rays and look at each x-ray and critically assess each x-ray from the last one and the last one and go to the farrier, oh, this foot capsule's changing. That doesn't happen either. In fact, it's rare that a vet and a farrier are there looking at the x-rays all at the same time. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. It's usually the vet that takes the x-ray of a manipulated hoof capsule that they didn't even manipulate, that they don't even realize has been manipulated, and then they're making their assessment on this foot that they can't possibly make an assessment on because they don't understand the manipulation of the hoof capsule. Who knew that this lesson was going to be this live was going to be a lesson all about this? My childhood pony used to point the 4 feet forward. Yeah. Though I don't know why your name's not showing. This all makes so much sense. Why so much pushback from the professionals? No one should stop learning. No,
that's a bit of an eye-opener, isn't it? So, do you think that with horses costing the way that they do, and the amount of money that they are very often insured for, if they even owned up to this, well, there's no other word, negligence, do you think that they would have a business? That's shocking, isn't it? How many people would be going out there and saying, "Oh my God"? But we have a bit of a clinch to that deal right now. But because there has been no formal research, if it was to go to court, who would they bring in as their experts? It would be the vets that don't know. It'll be the farriers that don't know. Until we get enough information, and all we know, it's like it is.
The information,
but we've got all the proof.
But Gary, and here's the thing: they can't bring anybody that. When a savvy lawyer, now I'm not going to say go out and sue your vet. God Almighty, that's not what we're saying. We're saying education needs to be changed. Okay. Yes. But if you have a savvy lawyer, if that situation, and this is going to go live on YouTube, so people are going to watch this. If you had a savvy lawyer, all they'd have to say is, and where's the research that proves, Mr. Vet, that what you're saying is true? When they have all of this written, shown on all the x-rays, where's your research? And they would have to say, we haven't got any, because there isn't any. There isn't any. Because they've ignored that one. That's the elephant in the room. That's been shoved under the carpet. Not going to talk about osteonecrosis. You Google it. Get on there now and Google osteonecrosis. See if you can find any research papers. If you can find them, send them to me. And what's more, when equine research is laughable, because there are so many variables involved. It's true. There are so many variables involved. You can't take any of it. The data sets can't be taken as being pure because of all the different variables, not least the fact that who's the one doing the hoof care, how are the horses being kept, how are they being fed, what are their ages, how fit are they, how healthy have they been shod in the past, all loads and loads and loads of things. How stressed are they? I want everyone to see Rosie's recovery. Right, quick. Should we do it tonight or should we do it tomorrow night?
No, let's do it tonight because it's been quite. It would be nice to show a recovery. It finishes on a high note.
All right then. Does everybody like to see?
There's been quite a lot to take in tonight, isn't it? And it's not always rosy. See what I did there?
Here she is. Here's lovely Rosie. And feel free to add in Alison. Alison's with us tonight. Alison is Rosie's owner. And Gary, just quickly tell everybody what happened with Rosie.
So Rosie is on a lovely track around about 5 acres. I came along and helped Alison and all of her horses and all of her family's horses many years ago. But something happened to Rosie, and she came down with laminitis, and it was through infection. I think her immune system got a bit low, and something freak happened. Now this horse has little to no grass. There might be a little bit that she gets from under the fence, but that's it, because she's on a surface track, and she was really poorly. So much so that we were all thinking that we weren't 100% sure whether she was going to survive. It was that bad. Anyway, to cut a long story short, we found out that there was infection. She had treatment that she needed, and she started to recover. So the toe, as you can see, got very long. So this is even though she was sore on her feet, this is what I was alluding to earlier, and she found it hard to move, she wasn't rocking back. Very little of that rocking back. Yes, her feet hurt, for sure, but she wasn't rocking back because I was already looking after these feet. So the pedal bone was in the right place, or pretty much in the right place.
So the heels weren't high. You can see the coronary band. You can see here now, this picture here, this was on the 8th of April last year. You can see that she started to get what we call a healing ankle. Now, had she got into the hands of vets and farriers, what do you think they would have done? Boop, chop that off. That's the beginning of the problems, because then we don't have anywhere to balance to. So now we're at a loss. Now this is going out. And the farriers are taught to keep all of this in line. So you can see it's doing that. And they would want to keep it in line with here. So that's effectively what her wedge is. So the heels would be allowed to go up. Now we hear it time and time again on our page. Farriers aren't taught to raise the heels in laminitis case. Well, I beg to differ. They might not be taught to raise the heels, but they're taught to get an HPA, which means they have no option but to leave the heels. All right, so let's move on. So that was on the 8th of April, and you can see now, here's the really interesting thing, right? You can't tell what's going on in this. This is before the trim. You can't tell what's going on in this horse's foot right now. This is her other foot. It looks long. It needs a trim. But Gary is not going to take that toe off because P3 is in an okay angle, so it does need a trim. This is the back foot. You can see all the rings. Now, Gary and I know what's going to happen to this foot, but I don't even think Alison knew what was going to happen to this foot. And owners don't know, and certainly vets and farriers don't know because they've never seen it. What we're going to show you now is a rehab and what happens to a foot when you have a natural rehab. So that's that. Then Gary comes along and he does the trim. So here we are. We've got a trim. Just had a little bit of something going on there, potentially a little abscess when it was up there, when it was up at the coronary band, and you can see how that's already beginning to change. That is the foot after it's trimmed, so it shortens a little bit, but not because he shortens it here, it's because it needed wall and heel to go, right? Underneath is starting to begin to show you things. Now, this is not where P3 is. P3 is here. But this here is sole that's migrated over the lamellar wedge, because what you're about to see is that her sole is actually here and she's got a very big wedge. But you couldn't see that before, could you? Here's another example. Do you see it migrating forward? Now, it's not the foot the foot just grows underrun. God, when the light catches the trim, it makes you can see that her frog isn't very good either because she's been poorly. These are her back feet. Laminitis doesn't occur in the back feet then. Of course it does. So this is her back foot. Can you see that red? So that's just beyond P3. Okay, this is P3 and that would have come around here, and that's just around here, just back from this dark mark here is where P3 is. So this is all the inflammation that's going on in her feet. So now we're going to jump to May. Now you can see now the new foot is still growing down. You're not going to see the major change happen just yet, but we celebrate when we see this. So this is a month later. Now look where you can now start to see the true lamellar wedge, because all that excess sole has gone. You can see that the inflammation is starting to settle down, but that she's got wall in play, because that is protecting this area here, because he's not dumping her onto her sole, which would put P3 in dire straits. He's keeping the heels down to the hard sole plane. This pony is now sound. All right, we're still in May. Can you see here this healing angle? Now watch what starts to happen to the toe as this toe starts to grow out. Here's the hinds. You can see that there's a good wedge on the hinds. Now that should tell you something. That it's not that different, is a little bit different to the fronts, but it's not that different. Laminitis happens everywhere. Right, now we're in July, so we've jumped a month. Look now, do you see? Now we've got a little bit of divergence here, but hardly anything. You can see hardly anything. It's barely anything. The bottom of that one is there. There's barely any divergence. And that's because he's keeping the toe wall on the ground and it's getting stimulated. So you see here, you see, don't be looking at that one to that one. Just look here. There's a tiny bit of divergence, but barely anything, because the foot is being kept on the ground. The toe wall is being kept on the ground. So this is July. Can you see now what's starting to happen? And this is the old foot growing out, and this is the new foot growing in. And so now look at the size of the wedge as it starts to grow out. Now you can see what's going on. This is a hind foot. Same thing happening. All that inflammation below here is now starting to grow out. Now we get to August. This is a sound pony, everybody. She's not tripping. She's not in pain. She's absolutely fine. You've got the owner here who can back that up. And now look what's happening. Do you see the hoof pastanaxis is correct? Because Gary's keeping the heels down to the hard sole plane, which is where this pony needs them. And they look a little bit high here, but it's just the angle that it's taken. They're not. This is where this pony needs them. And the distorted hoof is growing out perfectly normally and fine. Here we are. I've still got that wedge here underneath. So this is August. This is a hind foot in August. Look at this. It's nearly getting to the bottom now. And the rings are beginning to settle down. So where are we? I just wanted to show you. I think I've gone now. Here she is. Look. Let's just see if this will play. See? Sound horse. No tripping. Okay, now she's got long toes, but she's just saying perfectly sound, and she canters around on them. So she's saying 7 months, 7 months ago. All right, we carry on. We've got repeat there, I think. Where did we get to? I think we just repeated a bit. Okay, so now we're here in November. This is the right fore. Remember those big thick lines? They've nearly just completely gone now. And look above. No lines, barely, very, very faint. Hoof pastanaxis all in line. Now, Gary didn't model this to happen. The old foot grew out. The old distorted foot grew out. This is towards the end. Look, you can see. This is the left fore. And you see this lovely hoof pastanaxis in line. You can see the heels better here now. Do you see? Gary didn't create that. The horse created it by just keeping to the horse's natural parameters, and the distortion grew out. And then right down at the bottom, I don't know if you've put the most recent ones in, actually.
No, I haven't put them in yet.
And this was December, so we're in March now, so all this is gone. Do you see?
Yes,
it's got a normal foot left. And I have got...
and after the initial laminitic attack and we got on top of it, she was progressively better, but she was sound within 8 weeks. So then after that, it was just a case of that foot then growing out, because the healing had happened right at the top of the foot. And once that healing happens right at the top of the foot, then we just have to wait for those months to pass for it to grow out.
Cool, huh?
It's that simple. It really is that simple. It is not bullshit. It is boringly simple.
Right. Last image, because we've got to go, because we've been on for hours. Here's the last one to show you, where it's the comparison whiteboard. Can you see? Here we go. What's the one we want? That is from April to November. See it changing? And she's doing that. And then at the end, look at this. Look how little wedge she has in November, and it's pretty much gone now, I think.
Yeah.
Because in December, I haven't updated it for the December, had nearly gone. Can you see the wedge reducing? See the wedge reducing? Boop. There you go.
Now you can go away and think about what happened if the heels were up and the toes were chopped off.
To force that foot
to look normal for the unsuspecting owner and the uneducated professionals. Critical thinking is what got us to do this. Critical thinking.
Okay.
Who do you believe, Rosie or their lying eyes?
Do you believe me or your lying eyes? Do you measure the collateral of the groove to determine the height of the back of the foot? I think Pete Ramey talks about that. No. And we don't need to, because we just follow the hard sole plane. However, if you have a horse with very, very compacted soles, then the collateral groove depth, we don't measure it, but the collateral groove depth is considered, but we don't measure it. No. You don't need to, because the laminar stretch was left in the hinds. They are coming along well, the front not so much. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's money and ego and ignorance and myths and false beliefs.
Yeah.
We need some good news, Rosie. Yeah, she's a miracle pony. She's not really. Oh, is that Alison?
It is. Yeah. She is a miracle pony.
Not really.
But we just did what we did. We did what she needed.
You had a miracle person who told the vet to take a blood test. That's what you heard. So surprised this can still happen on a track system. Happy ending. She had an infection because the vet came along and the vet didn't believe that she had an infection. Gary said, no, look, come on, this isn't right. She's on a track system. This is not normal. And they took a blood test and she had a raging infection. So she had to go on some very strong antibiotics. Nobody knows where the infection came from or what happened, but she was very poorly. She nearly died. And that just triggered.
So much so she was eating next to nothing.
She was on the floor in December.
And she could stand up for about between 2 and 5 minutes at a time, and then she had to lay down again. This was right on the knuckle. It was
right on the knuckle.
It was right on the knuckle. I haven't been involved with a horse that poorly that has come back before. And I actually don't know. I don't know why I even suggested a blood test. It was just logic. I said, hold on a minute. You've created this lovely track, a surface track for your, well, I think it was 8 to 10 horses back then, and I know that your hay supplier hasn't changed and it's all really good. Something else is going on here. And I said, it's not going to cost you a huge amount of money. Get a blood test done. And the vet said, what are you wasting your money on that for? It's just laminitis. Alison insisted. He said, sorry, you've been around 5 minutes. Gary's been around years. I trust him. I just need to iron this out, even if it comes back negative. And it came back with a raging infection. So she ended up having antibiotics, strong antibiotics for 10 days. And once she was halfway through the antibiotics, she started to recover. And then she just carried on. And it was, every day was better. Every day was better. Amazing. Fabulous. Absolutely fabulous. So and I think there's something that we can learn.
I'll comment in a minute.
Sorry, Linz. I think there's something that we can learn from this. And I've used this slight analogy for a number of my clients with other situations. When we call a vet out, and I'm not saying that we don't need vets at times like this, of course we do, but they have to know their limitations. When something goes wrong, they are there and they're with you for 15 to 20 minutes. You know your horse better than anyone. You know your horse better than anyone.
And that's why you're the person. What did I put up on the page a little while ago? Your vet sees your horse about an hour a year. Your farrier or your trimmer sees your horse about 8 hours a year, if that, actually. And you have your horse for 8,360 or something like that hours a year. So who's the one who should be advocating for their horse? You! Right, read a comment earlier on a different Hoof page post asking for clarity. The response she got was, it can be confusing, but this isn't really meant for the layperson. How arrogant and condescending. Oh my God, I'm telling you now, for that very reason, 8,000 odd hours that you are in charge of your horse. If only owners knew this stuff, Gary and I wouldn't go through PTSD every 5 minutes, because we see another one and another one and another one, and because the professionals aren't going to change it. They cannot change. They have been, that's robotic. They have got so ingrained into it, they can't change. The only people who can are you. Absolutely. That is why we give you this information. I care more about that than I care about anything else. Gary and I care more about, which is why we started a Hoof school, which is why we've got students going through our Hoof school, because they are going to go out and do the same and teach you again and do more workshops and do and get to more people. And that, honestly, from when we started Hoofing Marvelous a few years ago, and Gary and I only said this, say this the other day, now you don't even know it's happening. It's morphing. Nobody was talking about this stuff years ago, just us. And now we have people coming on the page going, oh yes, diet match. Tracks didn't exist. I brought track systems. It was a paddock paradise, and I knew of one in the UK, and nobody knew about it. And then I started doing workshops on track systems, and I called them tracks because the UK people were like, paddock paradise, who don't like that. So I called them tracks. I created my own track. I started going out doing presentations all about, and I didn't stop. And that was in 2007 when I was doing that, when I started doing that. And all this stuff that's come out has come from us going, that's what happens. And the rest of the world has gone, chop the toes off, don't need a track, don't need this, don't need. And then they've all gone, ooh, oh no, maybe we might need a track now, not realizing that the people that they throw stones at, us, I mean, it was Jamie Jackson who obviously came up with the idea. I just took it and then just ran with it because that's what I was doing in the UK. That's what saved my pony in 2002. Okay, so people throw stones at Hoofing Marvellous, but we have been around a long time, and they forget that we have been there, done that, got the t-shirt, watched the film, read the book, made the food, got the recipe. We've done it. We've tried it. We know it doesn't work because now we know, and we've critically assessed it and learnt over 20 years. And this is the culmination, a campaign in a way. Fascinating. Thank you for sharing. I'm so grateful to Gary Hinton. We nearly gave up in January. Brilliant. Thanks for showing Rosie's healing journey. You're very, very, very welcome. Thank you. You are very welcome.
Thanks, Alison, for letting us share, because that's really important too.
Thank you, Alison. It's very important. People need to see this. She's a very important case study. My dentist told me not to take her out or I would be reported to the... I said she's... I know. And that's the other thing. Because of ignorance, we can't let anybody see horses that are transitioning like this. And you know who is allowed? Who is doing that now? Because she's so incensed with it? Is Bethan from Galsworth Track Livery. Because she's getting these horses in, and she's only just posted one and she put it in the group. Give her support. Support her, guys. You must go and support Bethan because she's the only other person who is out there with us going, look, here's another one. Look, here's another one. Look, long toes, not tripping, not tearing off he's not tearing his foot off. Where did all that myth come from then? Stop it. They've got to stop. And the more that we support people like Bethan, the more it will stop. Hi both. I know you are finishing up soon, but have you just put on a comment in the Phoenix group? Could you talk about soles, please, and what I can do to help my thoroughbred with very thin soles who is constantly foot? So perhaps tomorrow. Deborah, tomorrow. We'll talk about it. I love your avatar. We'll talk about it tomorrow, I promise. The vet, her house that she would not have. Yes, the vet bet her house that she would not have an infection. Not a wise thing to do, that is it?
That's not a wise thing to do.
Did you get her house then, Alison? No.
If you did, I want half.
Yeah. Hopefully learning occurred by the vet. Maybe, maybe not. Squire had lumps in his throat when he came down with laminitis. He was the same. Wouldn't stand, then started colicking. Oh, yeah. It happens.
It's hard.
In Rosie's situation, when the toe looks like that, how do you ward off the naysayers, the ones that tell you that you don't show them? That's what's so sad. But if you've noticed over the last couple of years and with Galsworth, we are sort of introducing these feet. You've seen us say, and in fact, I haven't put a post up for ages on it, hashtag embrace those ugly feet. Embrace ugly feet. Look at the ugly feet. We're desensitizing the world, a bit like when we brought tracks around, a bit like when we said stop chopping the toes. We're kind of desensitizing the world to realize that it's okay. It's okay. You can have a horse with feet like that, and it's not going to cause problems for them. I just got stuck on the fact that she was sound and I totally trusted Gary. Thank you for your time. The path is not going to be easy because being open-minded is not always tolerated by others. Best
also,
in years.
Well, if you do have people come round and they do get to see these animals that have got those funky feet, the vet can only put that horse to sleep if it is in undue stress and pain. So if they turn up, what you've got to do is you've got to say the heart rate is normal, the breathing is normal, the horse is moving sound. They cannot do anything. And if somebody comes round on their own, you get a second opinion. And if need be, a third opinion.
We've been there.
There will be a vet that will not put a horse to sleep unless they have physical markers that says that they're in pain. They may not like the look of the feet, but they can't do it because there is no clinical signs of discomfort. They physically can't.
And that's for another story. Do you know what I suggest you all do if you want to learn more about that? Go and look at my story about Dolly. I don't think I call it Dolly's story. It's on my YouTube channel. It's something to do with rotation. It's one of those. Or Stop Putting Horses to Sleep. And I tell you the story of a horse called Dolly and how the vet called the police and how we had to buy another vet. I paid money for another vet to turn up. The RSPCA were there, veterinary student, another vet turned up. Police. It was a mess, police, and we saved the horse eventually. But it was horrific. We must stop doing these really long sessions. It's terrible. I've read it. It sounded terrible. We really do. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about Deborah Freeman's horse. And then we're
just going to go through the page. We're going to go through the page.
Tomorrow we'll do a go through the page night. We're not going to do a. I'm not going to be
more little lighter.
Yes, well, it might be. It might not be. I'm not going to show pictures. I might not show pictures. We'll go through the page tomorrow night and we'll do something a bit different. I'm sorry it was a bit heavy. Yeah. And you know, if you don't get it now, don't worry. If it's such a lot, go back and watch it again. And if you don't get it, it's okay, because you will get it. Get on that 15-day challenge. Get on the 10-day challenge. You can, even if you don't want to trim, and we say this to you time and time again, you still need to know how it works so that when farrier trimmer vet turns up, you go, no, you're not doing it like that. We've got to do it to the natural parameters. So you've got to do that and be prepared. Love you all, my Phoenix warriors. I'll be traveling and we'll catch up. Okay, and thanks, guys. You're very welcome. Always brilliant. Thank you, my darling Becky. I will see you all, Gary and I, tomorrow for another installment of the Gary and Lindsay Show. Bye-bye, all. Take care now. Bye-bye.